Chapter 15. I felt kind of sorry for Daddy. He had 3 days off work. I didn't feel sorry for him because of that, but every morning as I was leaving for school, he got his binoculars and headed for the river. Every afternoon when I got home from school, I found him standing by the river looking through them. I felt totally rotten about the whole thing. I hadn't really lied to him. I told him I saw the turtle in the river. And well, Blackwater Swamp was part of the river, sort of. When he asked me where in the river, I told him a ways down from the bridge. And the old witch's house was a ways down from the bridge. It was a long ways down from the bridge. Still, I hadn't really told him a lie. Well, maybe a little lie. Anyway, I felt like a rotten jerk. Thursday night, Daddy brought his binoculars to my bedroom. Got to get back to the rig early tomorrow morning. Probably won't get home again until Monday or Tuesday. He tossed the binoculars to me. You get the chance, see if you can spot that turtle. Then he tossed a black case on my bed. Get a picture of it if you can. I opened the black case. It was Daddy's good camera. I couldn't believe he'd trust me with it. That camera was more important to him than me and Christine. I mean, when we went on vacation, he wouldn't even let Mama take pictures with the thing. Him trusting me with his camera made me feel even guiltier. I never took the camera to Blackwater Swamp. I was scared I might drop it or lose it. I figured it was best to just tell Daddy that I hadn't seen the turtle again. I went out to the swamp every chance I got. Most times, Mama and Christine were home when I came in from school. Once in a while, I found a note on the TV that said gone shopping, or went for groceries, or took Christine to the doctor. After about 3 weeks, I didn't even slow down enough to read the notes. If I saw one taped to the TV, I'd grab my old clothes and the binoculars and race to the swamp. During that time, the old witch quit yelling at me. The crows never did, though. Each time I passed the forest, they'd caw and yell. It always sounded like they were scolding me or saying something nasty about me, invading their territory. Each trip to Blackwater Swamp, I caught myself sneaking a little closer to the island. The last time I stood by the pile of driftwood right across from the Blackwater Lagoon from the old woman's shack. She never screeched at me, go home, and never threatened that she was going to get me, even if I didn't leave. She just ignored me. It was more like she tolerated me. She didn't want me there, but I guess she figured it was more trouble to try and run me off. The little island with the cages was the most fascinating place in the whole world. The old witch was kind of interesting too. One day when I didn't get to go to the swamp, I was playing catch with Dawn in the front yard. Suddenly, I saw the old woman on the path down by the bridge. She had a big canvas bag over her shoulder. I watched her until she disappeared into the trees. The next day, Mama had to get Christine a booster shot at the clinic. When I got to the driftwood pile, I saw the witch digging around in the canvas bag. She dug out old food scraps and put them in the bucket that she used to feed the turtles. Then she dug out some plastic bags and some white gauze. She washed those in the water and hung them to dry on the thicket. Next, she pulled out an almost empty bottle of alcohol and went inside her cabin. She came back with another bottle and poured the alcohol into that. The stories about her scavenging in the trash cans around town all made sense now. Only she wasn't a street woman hunting for food, or a witch finding things to cast her evil spells with. She was just an old woman who loved animals. She got food and supplies to take care of them the best way she could. All sorts of animals came and went. Some she just put in the cages and fed. Others, the ones that were injured, she took into her shack. A few days later, when I came to watch, she either had them outside in the cages or I never saw them again. On one of my trips out there, she was taking the bandages off the little opossum I'd help her catch. For some reason, I remembered the day I'd seen her on the bridge and almost killed myself on my bicycle. I remembered the little drops of blood I noticed where she had knelt. "You find Squeaky on the bridge that day?" I called. She didn't answer. "He got hit by a car or something, right? You found him and fixed him up?" She nodded, then put the opossum in one of her cages and went back in her shack. It was the middle of May before she ever spoke to me. That was the day she let the second litter of baby rabbits go. I was standing by the pile of driftwood when she brought the 4 rabbits across the wood planks. She'd never come across the bridge when I was there, except for that day she tried to run me off. For a second, I thought about running up the path, only I didn't. "Don't move," was all she said to me. Then she knelt down and opened the latch on the little cage. "You move, maybe scare the babies. Maybe the turtles get 'em if'n dey get too near the water. Be still." Holding my breath and not so much as blinking, I watched the baby rabbits scurry off into the tall grass. And for the first time, I saw the witch of Blackwater Swamp smile. When I wasn't watching her and the animals, I played after school with Dawn. We rode our bicycles or practiced catch with our baseball and gloves. Jimmy joined us a couple of times, but he usually had things to do after school. Once, we did go over to Jimmy's house to play. On the way there, we stopped at Connor's. Connor's was kind of a gas station, convenience store, and beer joint all mixed into one. When we rode our bikes up, I saw the black Chevy. 3 guys sat on the front of a beat-up-looking Ford pickup parked next to it. Jimmy wheeled up and stopped in front of them. "Hey, Bubba, what's doing?" A guy who sat between the other 2 shot him a disgusted look. "Beat it, punk," he growled. "We're busy." "I want you to meet my friends," Jimmy said cheerfully. "Get lost." The guy was ugly. He had a mean face. His hair was kind of greasy, like he hadn't washed it in a couple of months. He had on a white t-shirt. I could see a pack of cigarettes rolled under one short sleeve. He had a tattoo on his arm. When he raised the cigarette to his lips, I saw a picture of a devil with horns. There was a dagger stuck through the devil's head, and red ink dripped down like blood coming from the blue devil. Jimmy started to get off his bike, but the guy flipped his cigarette at him. Red ashes flew when it hit his shirt. Jimmy brushed off his shirt and stepped on the smoldering butt by his foot. Then he turned to us. "I'll go get us a candy bar," he said. "You guys wait here." Don and I didn't wait there. We moved back and waited on our bicycles for Jimmy to come back. The guys on the truck cursed and laughed, real crude-like, when one of them told a joke or said something dirty. A black woman in a blue Oldsmobile drove past the corner. They yelled some vulgar stuff at her and called her names. Then they laughed and laughed. Don and I agreed that we'd never come back to Connor's again. We were sure glad when Jimmy finally joined us and got on his bike so we could get out of there. Jimmy's home wasn't very nice. It smelled of smoke and beer, and his mom didn't keep it clean like my mom did. There were dirty dishes in the sink and on the table. There were ashtrays overflowing with cigarette butts and ashes in the living room. I knew Jimmy and his mom didn't have much money. Still, she could surely sweep and clean up. I mean, it didn't take a lot of money to do that. When we got outside, I'd found that I'd forgotten to bring my ball glove. Jimmy said he had an extra one in the garage with his bat and ball. I started to go with him, but he told me to go back with Don. "Mom don't like nobody messing around in the garage but me." "I won't go in," I said. "I can wait at the door and help you carry stuff." His lips seemed to wrap around his teeth, and he bit down on them. "I'll get it," he insisted. It didn't seem fair. I mean, the night Jimmy spent with me, he went through every room in my whole house. Now he wouldn't even let me stand at the door of the garage while he got a ball glove. I kind of stuck my nose up at him and went back to wait with Don. The last week in May, Daddy got to stay home. We spent all Saturday walking up and down the river with the binoculars and the camera. I sure wanted to tell him where the turtles were, but I just couldn't. I knew he'd wring my neck if he found out that I'd spent all this time on the river for nothing. The following Saturday, I woke up and found a note on the TV. Mama had a hair appointment and she'd taken Christine with her. I dressed and took off for Blackwater Swamp and almost got myself killed. The end of chapter 15. Chapter 16. I usually slept late on Saturdays. How long I'd slept after Mama and Christine left, I had no idea. I did know that if I was going to get to the swamp and back before Mama got suspicious because I was gone so long, I best get moving. After I dressed, I grabbed a banana and an apple. I ate them as I walked down the path next to the river. When I finished my snack, I started jogging. I'd been down this path so many times I felt like I knew every inch of it. Just before I left the river to climb the hill next to the forest, a strange sound came to my ears. I froze in mid-stride. My tennis shoe dug into the soft mud, but I didn't wiggle. I didn't even breathe. The sound came again. It was like a bell, only deeper. I frowned. Though there were bells on the Catholic Church back in Oklahoma, they rang at noon. This bell didn't sound like one of those at all. It was so deep it seemed to rumble instead of ring. In fact, the sound was more like a gong, like one of those big gongs the Islanders hit with clubs. I'd seen a few movies on black and white late-night TV when Mama and Dad went dancing and stayed out late. I smiled remembering those corny old movies. The sound came again, and a frown tugged at the corners of my mouth. It was a strange, eerie sound, and I couldn't help wonder what could make such a noise here in Louisiana. The closer I got to Blackwater Swamp, the louder and clearer the noise grew. By the time I topped the ridge above the old woman's shack, I wasn't jogging, I was running. I kind of gave a little skip hop as I topped the very peak of the ridge, then charged down the path as fast as I could. Just as I came over the top, I saw this big, hairy, black lump in front of me. I was really trucking. There was no way I could stop. There wasn't even time to dodge to the side and go around it. I put my hands out to cushion the impact. My fingers sunk into coarse black hair. The last thing I saw before I slammed into the thing was a short, black, stumpy tail. "A bear!" I heard someone scream, not even realizing it was me. It was like running into a fuzzy brick wall. There was no give to it whatsoever. A startled whoomph sound came to my ears. I think the bear stood up, spun around, and tried to swat or bite me, only I don't know for sure. The reason I wasn't sure what happened next was that when I crashed into the bear, I bounced off. I felt myself flying through the air. I spun around a couple of times like a ballet dancer doing one of those pirouettes. Then I made kind of a somersault in midair and landed on my bottom in the tall grass beneath the path. I hit with such a jolt it felt like my bottom was trying to go through the top of my head. Only I didn't sit there long. Not 6 feet away, the bear glared at me with big, dark brown eyes. I could see his white fangs and the slobber that dripped from the corner of one lip. "Whumph," he said. I don't remember getting to my feet. I don't remember thinking that I'd run into the back end of a bear. I don't remember thinking he was going to eat me. I don't remember anything. The next thing I knew, I was on the path racing down the hill toward the island, running for my life. The path was crooked, the trail was steep. If I took my eyes from the ground for a split second, I might trip. I glanced back over my shoulder anyway. The bear was on all fours. His eyes were on me. He was running down the hill after me. I ran harder. "Help!" I screamed at the top of my lungs. "Help!" My left foot slipped a bit when I turned at the pile of driftwood. I kept my balance and raced for the little wooden bridge. Frantically, I glanced back. The bear was still coming down the hill. I might be able to make the bridge. I might be able to get across and get to the safety of the old woman's shack. I might... "Right board!" A shrill, piercing scream came to my ears. "Right side! Right board!" The witch shouted at me from the side of her shack. It didn't make sense. I kept running. "Bear!" I screamed. "Help me!" I charged across the bridge. My right foot hit solid wood. When my left came down, there was a little crack sound and the board gave some. My right solid again. But when my left foot came down a second time, there was a louder popping sound. The thick, heavy plank gave beneath my foot. I went flying off the side. A bone-jarring crash knocked the breath out of me. I lay flat on my face, gasping for air. I'd been running so hard the fall had carried me clear across the lagoon. I landed on my chest and stomach on the bank of the island. Well, most of me landed there. When I felt the wet about my legs and feet, my eyes almost jumped out of my head. I was partly in the water. That's when I remembered the huge turtles and bear that was chasing me. Not even taking time to breathe, I crawled up the bank. My mouth was full of sand and I couldn't see out of my left eye. It was full of sand too. I got up and ran. I ran smack into the thick green brush. And suddenly, I wasn't running anymore. The brush wrapped about me like Mama's arms wrapped about Christine. Only the limbs weren't tender and caring. They were coarse and hard and unyielding. Something stung me. It was a sharp, stabbing pain that made me yell out. Then another sting and another. At first, I thought I'd hit a wasp nest. But when I tried to reach and knock it away, something grabbed my arm. A sharp pain jabbed at my palm and made my hand double into a tight fist. Eyes wide, I looked down. A long, thin, needle-sharp green thorn was hooked under the skin near my thumb. As I pulled back, it lifted the skin and held me. Gently, I moved my hand the other way. The thorn came up and I saw a little drop of blood. I tried to run again. I couldn't move. It hurt. There were more long, sharp thorns. They were everywhere in the thicket. Each branch was covered with them. Some were nearly 3 inches long. Broad at the base, they stuck out from the branches into points as sharp as an ice pick. I was stuck. I couldn't get away. I couldn't move. In a panic, I looked around for the bear. He was at the bridge. On the far side of the bank, he stopped to sniff at the broken board. Then slowly, he stepped on the other one and started across. I jumped and yanked. The thorns dug through my arms and bit my legs. They held my arms. I couldn't breathe without being jabbed in the stomach or chest. The bear was coming and I couldn't even run. Suddenly, the old witch was there. She stood right beside me. Her tight black eyes glared at me. Stop! I tried to jerk. I tried to rip myself free from the sharp thorns and twisted limbs. From the corner of my eye, I saw her gnarled black hand. She raised it and brought it down. She bopped me right on top of the head. My eyes blinked. My head bounced. It took a second for my eyes to focus on her. You stop! Her voice was stern, angry. I tried to move again, but she raised her fist over my head. I stopped. When I did, her angry look softened. "The bear come. You do not move. You not try run away. You no wiggle, you stand. No matter what, you not move." I blinked and gave a tiny nod. Behind her, I could see the bear. He stepped from the wood plank and walked straight for us. She turned from me to face him. I don't know what she said. She used some kind of foreign language I'd never heard before. Her strange words blended together almost like a chant or something. The bear looked at me, then at her. He made that whoomph sound again and reared up on his hind legs. After standing there for a moment, kind of teetering and balancing himself, he dropped down on all fours and came toward us. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. Or her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "You no move. The bear may sniff you, maybe lick you. He maybe even put you arm in his mouth. You no move. Even if you hurt, you no move." Then she turned and walked away. She left me there. The bear was so close I could see his shiny black nose. I could feel his breath on the back of my hand. My lips were clamped tight around my teeth. Even with my mouth shut, a little squeak came from my throat when his tongue stretched out to touch my bare arm. His tongue was as coarse and rough as driveway gravel. I knew I was going to die. And the witch of Blackwater Swamp simply walked off and left me for the bear. The end of chapter 16.